Hello everyone, welcome to Drinks and Mics, brought to you by Naira. My name is Ugo Dre, and of course I have here with me today the usual gang on the Drinks and Mics table. To my right, disturbing the show, of course, with his ice picking. He hasn't still learned how to pick ice from a bucket. After all these months of teaching.
So
just use your hand. It's okay. We can allow you. He hasn't learned yet. Tunji Andrews, by the way.
Yep.
To the right, and of course, to my left is I noticed he was trying to do something over the week, trying to get you guys to call him Otumba, and in exchange for money.
I'm telling you, he was just campaigning. He was campaigning. He was doing campaign promises. You could almost see it.
Dude, you don't buy
this
thing.
Best.
You earn it.
I'll do what I do best.
I try to buy everything. Jesus.
The one and only say it now. The one and only.
Anyway, the one and only former Otumba. All right, so we have a special guest today, of course, as usual. On the show today is Esili Ebe. Esili, you want to tell the guys what you do? First of all, we Silver Foxes, we always look very different.
They're going to start again.
We come with all the salt and spice. It's not something that you find everywhere. So I have my fellow Silver Fox here.
So what about us bodies? What about us bodies? Cheers.
No bodies. Just purely Silver Fox. So Esili, right? What do you do?
So you drink, Esili.
So I run an advisory business called SCAP Management. Would obviously provide advisory services to quite a range of companies, industries. Also manage an asset management company on the side too called Apollo.
Okay.
Yeah, we do somewhere around about 5 million.
Fantastic. So in case you see the way he's sounding very quiet, just go and watch his YouTube videos. And we've got a firebrand in the studio today. All right, guys. Busy week, of course. I don't even know where to start from, but let me just try and sort of give Tunji a little bit of that.
Yes, I was going to come with
fire
my
that he
MAGA
likes.
hat. I was going to come with my MAGA
because
hat.
he's been an amazing week for him. I remember when he was making noise about getting into Bitcoin at 75. Now Bitcoin is 110 or thereabout, and so you can see he's changed to native today. It's all part of it. It's all, when you just jam unexpected wealth.
My problem is I didn't buy more because I was at 75 and thinking it will come down to 73. I was just feeling, and then it did not. I just woke up and one morning and it had gone to 78, 79.
What's driving this? Why is Bitcoin at 110? Is this real?
So
is this your MAGA guys?
No. So it was basically a decoupling. It was a decoupling from the markets.
What do you mean decoupling from the markets?
It was a decoupling from the market. So Arnold's people generally tend to run helter-skelter. Analysts, proper capital market people tend to run helter-skelter when there's so much happening. Even, just that stop and check what's going on. They just move in this direction. And the market is always topsy-turvy. But the crypto market was following it for a while. But after a while, they kind of saw the whole, you guys are just panicking. Let's calm down. So they've left you. So even the day GDP numbers for the US came out, crypto markets didn't shake. There was the day Donald Trump dropped some hot news, was like 2-3 weeks ago. The crypto market didn't shake, but the capital market did.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. So I just think that Bitcoin is just lucky to be caught up in this risk on movement that's going on in the markets, right? Because even equities, US equities in general have been rallying over through the same period. It's just Bitcoin has a bit more leverage, but I still think that things are going to turn around, and I'll tell you why, right? So you had the US.
See what I mean?
No, it's going to turn around in a minute, right? So it's going to get caught up in something I'm calling this basis trade crisis.
Okay.
And let me explain quickly what I mean, right? So, where do I start from? I'll start from when the Moody's downgraded US debts. Moody's are going to US debts, and things still rallied, and it really took me by surprise at what's going on. A part of me felt like there was a fatigue or a tiredness of this sell-off that we saw from Liberation Day to whatever the period that was. So he just kept rallying. But then I looked at things closely, and I see that the market is also looking at things closely. If you look at in 2000 when COVID, I'm going to try and remember the numbers properly now. In 2000 when we had COVID, there was a huge worry that U.S. corporate debt would collapse. I'm not sure if everyone remembers this correctly. So around in April, the U.S. government asked the Fed Reserve to basically bail out corporates. So what they did is they decided to buy a lot of corporate debts. But they asked them to buy investment grade corporate debts. It was called a primary market facility, credit facility, something, and a secondary market credit facility. So what that meant is the Fed was supposed to pump $750 billion into primary issuances of U.S. corporate debt and secondary issuances as well, secondary market issuances, including ETFs. So when this happened, you started to see the squeeze of spreads. So in a sense, the government was acting like a guarantor to U.S. debts, to U.S. stocks, to the U.S. stocks, right? And then also sort of turning U.S. corporates into quasi-government bonds. Right. So then now I'm going to get to my point about this is going to fall apart in a minute. So now fast forward through 2020 to 2025, you saw corporate market spreads. So U.S. corporate bonds, U.S. corporate spreads thin out because U.S. corporate debt was seen sort of as on the same level as U.S. sovereign debts, right? And then all of us, and remember this thinning of spread also affected junk corporate bonds or below investment grade corporate bonds. So now you have all of a sudden you have this, you have US, you have Moody's or you have this credit rating agencies downgrading US. So now what's you're going to start seeing now is which you have seen, you're going to start seeing US bonds start to sell off. So US bond yields have started to go up now. So US bond yields are the 20 and the 30 have now crossed 5% over the past couple of days. And as this has happened, this is now going to go into corporate debts, in my view, because now what's the agency
suggesting there's going to be a sell-off for corporate
debt? It's going to sell off, and then it's going to go into when US debt sells off, corporate debt now sells off. When that happens, equity market now sells off. And as debt sells off, this basis trade that I call is basically people being able to take debts or leverage positions because of lower US yields to now buy Bitcoin, to now buy crypto, being able to leverage positions in crypto. As this whole thing falls apart, as you've seen US government bonds trade higher, you're going to start seeing corporate bonds trade higher, you're then going to start seeing equity market sell off, and then it's going to affect Bitcoin.
But I think even over and beyond that, right? I'll say that there is greater amount of speculative trading you see in Bitcoin than perhaps any other security right now.
I mean, it's probably 99% speculative trading anyway.
Yeah.
There's a big retail segment that trades that.
Yeah.
So I don't think you should be surprised that that is the case. I do agree with you in the sense that there will be some correction at some stage. How much lower it goes, I don't know. But I think that Bitcoin has kind of found its place. I'm not a fan of cryptocurrency. I still struggle with the idea of it obviously being a fiat. My idea of a currency is
It's not a fiat anyway.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah.
My idea of a currency is something that is backed by the guarantee.
Sovereign,
of a sovereign.
Something. It may not even be a sovereign, but if it's not a sovereign, gold or something, that it doesn't have it has been one reason I've never owned Bitcoin. Maybe one or two, and someone sent it to me. Not that I bought it on my own, but regardless, I think that it's found its place.
I need new friends.
It's found its place of use.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I think that there's room for it. It won't kill. It won't kill the existing currencies out there.
Yeah.
The argument that it's an alternative asset at the moment is valid and can support the rally that it's enjoyed. The political support too, we can't discount that. Okay?
Yeah. True.
So I think taking all those into consideration, I think it makes sense that you see some rally, but to his point, there's a correction coming somewhere.
Yeah,
So two things. No. So I just
like he went to school for you.
Yeah, I know. You know what? So I'm going to counter with news headlines from today, and I just quickly touch to your point.
And it's at 107
I
today.
was completely, and the reason why I was so anti-crypto for so long, and he knows, was basically this concept. Now, the thing I decided to do was to stop looking at it from the way the crypto enthusiast explained it, which was supposed to be a replacement of fiat, which will never be, because I just could never understand.
Thank you for saying
how I could never understand how a sovereign will give up its power, because the core power of a sovereign is its currency. So it will give you power. It doesn't make sense. It never made sense to me. But once you start looking at that as an alternative asset class, it starts to make sense. But two bits of news today.
Okay.
Standard Chartered expects Solana to hit 275 by the end of 2025. $275 by the end of 2025 and $500 by 2029. Let me just go back to my app. Solana is trading at 171 today. Also, Trump media announces $2.5 billion raise to build a Bitcoin treasury. Yeah. It's going to make it one of the largest Bitcoin moves in public. One of the things that started to make me pay attention is really this drive. And this drive actually precedes Donald Trump. The main actors in trying to build this treasury have been around government. They've been, office holders for a little while. And they've been, advocating for the fact that, the US needs to build a crypto treasury, move away from gold and all of that. And now Donald Trump has embraced them. $2.5 billion moved into crypto starts to move it towards the area of less volatility, because one of the reasons why it's hugely volatile is because, like you said, 90% of the people who trade in it are retail investors. So I'm having my app on my phone.
But even beyond that, there's nothing behind the asset. That's
so again, this is where it starts to.
And that's where you see that, some of the other the cryptos, what are those cryptos that are treasury linked cryptos? Those are more stable. The stable coins.
So the stable coins are tied to currency, really. Correct. So one peg, one
That's
to
why
one.
they're more stable.
Yeah, they're more stable, and they are. In fact, I don't even consider them crypto.
There's nothing there for you. You like volatility?
No, it's not. I don't like volatility.
But quick question though, Tunji, don't you think that as Bitcoin gains,
I can't believe I'm the crypto guy now.
I mean, I've been a crypto guy for the last 5 6 years.
I remember back in the day.
So,
I remember back in the day. Like
to your point as well, which is as cryptocurrency starts to gain more mainstream cred, I kind of feel like throughout this Trump presidency, you're probably going to see Main Street adoption of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, definitely.
When that starts to happen, do you still see the sort of volatility that you're seeing? Because my point is, volatility is actually been the bread and butter of crypto. That's why people go into it, because it goes down and then it goes up again, it spikes, and that's where you actually, and that's why it has all this retail love or affinity. But when it starts to gain mainstream,
that volatility starts to die.
We've seen all those 5-10%.
That serious rally will die, but it also means that the serious drop also starts to die. Which of course,
huge moves.
It doesn't go up.
Yeah, so volatility
volatility dies.
So the lowest I think it hit in 2022, was it 22 or 23? Was about 35?
Yeah,
30 something.
Yeah,
that was the lowest I think. Yeah, right.
Now it's back to.
It's been hitting new. So every
new lows,
the new lows that are higher than the previous lows. And then of course, what about the I mean, if you keep checking crypto prices, you won't sleep.
No, I don't do that.
So what about the fact that most of these trades are basically, credit backed. So, I mean, most of the people who are, they're all leveraged.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Isn't that what feeds into the volatility itself?
Yeah. So at
what point does it peak? Is that the point you're trying to make?
So that's another worry for me. So what I'm doing right now, because I'm basing, and I usually base a lot of my a lot of my views on U.S. Treasuries, right? Because U.S. dollar rules the world, and I inherently believe that the markets follow U.S. Treasuries, whatever direction. So what I've been looking at to get my view for the next Q2, Q3, Q4, and 18 to 24 months is where will U.S. yields be? And then I'm okay if I say, and I think the U.S. yields go up, U.S. yields rise. So borrowing gets more expensive. So I'm looking at what makes money, what goes up when US rises, when US yields rise, and what goes down when yields rise. And for me, Bitcoin is one of those ones where, like I call it the basis trade, where people are leveraged, people borrow. If yields go up, borrowing costs goes up. So it gets more expensive to hold this coin. It gets more expensive to do this trade. So, and unfortunately, Bitcoin for me is caught up in this high yield story that I believe is coming in to the US or to the rest of the world. And that's why for me it's...
But the good judge, wouldn't just say that a credit crisis will affect all assets.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, they've always said. I mean, I thought that the conventional reasoning out there was that Bitcoin was immune to these things, but
insulated from that.
We've seen that
it's immune because it has a very
immune.
big retail
base.
Even at that, it hasn't been like over the last few years.
No. So it's not that it's not resilient. It's just that it has a threshold.
Yeah.
So if you take the market crisis of 2022, for example, when the correction, right? It was actually holding pretty well until the crisis deepened. So there's a threshold.
Yeah.
The crisis gets to a
a lot
level.
more staying power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once it hits that level,
Yeah.
and it just
So the thing
falls
again
off.
is what I started with, the decoupling. When the crypto market is standing away from traditional markets, it tends to hold up well.
Because I remember the media making that same, they're making that same analogy that, look, crypto is holding as a alternative asset through the sell-off we had following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when equities were tumbling.
There was even a sell-off this year. That's why.
Yeah.
Something.
So again, it has rallied 46%. That was the calculation I was doing.
I think also crypto has a big FOMO thing about it.
How does government tax this?
Crypto has a
How does
big
government
FOMO.
tax someone like Tunji?
So I would like a few things. So the SEC has they've licensed a few crypto exchanges. I would like to actually have it become that legitimate in Nigeria, so that you don't have to trade from your offshore holdings. But it makes a lot of sense because a lot of Nigerians are trading crypto. Because in this exchanges, wherever you go across the world, a large number of people. So you come across a Smith Stone, then Rebecca, Longstorm or something. Then you see a Emeka Nwako. you see the Nigerian, like 1 out of 5 out of every 5 people you trade with, you see that 3 are Nigerians, and so you start wondering why it doesn't make any sense that we're just.
So like for me, I think crypto should be part of everyone's portfolio. It's like, think of it as a plate of food, right? So where you have your rice, from your rice is gold.
Point taken when it gets to
then
next time it's at 30.
The salt is crypto. It's like the little condiment to to your plate.
Leads to my next question, Esili, and I guess Arnold can chime in as well. Don't you see, or do you ever see the situation where crypto trading is a threat to equities trading in Nigeria, especially? So over the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, it certainly is. I mean, given that, we have relatively shallow markets here. But again, you have to bear in mind that the bulk of those that trade equities in Nigeria are institutional, who will never do crypto at this stage, at least.
And the bulk of people who trade crypto
but
retail.
But you're already seeing things change. You're seeing a lot of institutions
in Nigeria,
outside Nigeria trading
First of all, you
crypto
don't
already.
have regulatory approvals to allow that to happen. So there's no crypto fund, mutual fund that SEC would approve. With the new regulations or the new, they probably would entertain a fund like that now. We'll see. But again, you look across the pension funds, who are the largest institutional investors. I don't see how that will fly
Don't put my money there.
in the next 10 years.
I mean,
The next 10 years.
In equities.
Next 10
It's taking them a long time.
We'll deal with this on buy side. So let's segue into the next topic.
Yeah.
Exchange rate disparity. Exchange rates of parallel market. It's been around, sticking around 1,620 or thereabout for some days now. Official 158. Appears that we're now back to that, widening that that spread that we've often said, look, that's now been eliminated.
Yeah.
Even though it's still probably less than 5% or so, but the spread is there. Esili, what's your take? Why is this happening?
You
Why
heard that phrase that traders make more money when there's volatility or that there's risk are high?
Yeah.
That's where we are now. There obviously been concerns around the trade, low oil prices. Traders will take advantage of that.
Is that why we're seeing this spread? So what can the CBN do to merge it? Like, who does it help that
How do you fix
you're
human
buying at
nature?
1,620 and then it's 1,588? So I mean, there's also
obviously having more liquidity, more dollar liquidity in the market will help. I don't know if you guys are aware,
Where
but
the
I'm actually quite hawkish on rates, in the sense that
Rates go up.
I think that
As
rates,
in Nigeria rates.
I think that rates ought to go higher.
when you say rates, what are you talking about? Interest
The
rate?
MPR.
Hot take, hot take,
Yeah.
hot
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
What?
I haven't heard one. I want to hear this
Yeah.
one. Sorry.
Yeah,
Let me move my
yeah.
take.
Yeah.
Ogojin, I'm sorry.
I'm very dovish, so I'd like to hear.
Yeah, because
It's currently
it's interesting.
At 27.5%, you think it should go higher?
Hot take, hot
Question
take.
for you is, why do you think they're not cutting it? Why aren't they cutting it?
Because they haven't attained the level of inflation that they
Correct.
want.
Why haven't they achieved the level of inflation they want?
Because prices haven't come down
Where is inflation right now?
at 20.
20.7.
20%, almost 24.
Do you really believe that?
Well,
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 Tunji, you should be asking that
that's
question.
that's a conversation for another day.
I can tell you that the inflation I feel in my pocket is much closer to plus 30. And I think that that's the same for every Nigerian.
Yeah.
I don't know how MBS kind of worked his way in there, but I think that a lot of people, a lot of analysts, kind of flagged that ahead anyways.
Yeah.
I was a lot more reserved going into the rebase. I thought these guys would do the right thing. We've been there before, where MBS had its inflation numbers, central bank had to collect its own inflation data separately. It kind of feels like we're going back there again,
I
Where-
did say this
where
on the
people
show.
are doubtful. So at the very early part of this year, that was a conversation. What did your guys put out? What is that? I know it's very easy for people to maybe get used to that number. Like the way you're quoting like, it's fact,
But it is.
It's not fact. No, it's not fact.
It is what MBS tells
It is
us,
what
right?
and MBS is the authority.
I mean, like, if we start doubting the MBS, then
So
Well,
I
I
mean,
think that-
so
but I
let me
think
ask you a
that-
question. Do you know that the MBS used to publish, after publishing inflation numbers,
yeah.
they would also follow up with a publication on the trend in food prices, month on month or year on year.
Yeah.
When last
they did
was
that
that
until
published?
December. Yeah.
Exactly. They did that up until December because those numbers will show what's really happening. And those numbers, even in December, were significantly above 40, 60%. So my point being that something definitely is fishy. But I don't.
So we're thinking that the CBN
we don't want to go
probably
in there.
believes that
I believe
there's some
that.
massaging of
I
figures
believe
somewhere.
that. I believe
Yeah,
that.
but I think that what it is
So
CBN and nobody really understands inflation numbers this year, right?
It's just a lot of confusion. So
But I just want to,
Confusion.
let me just
Nobody
let me name
understands
my
inflation
point. Let me just
numbers
name my
this
point. My point is that we do have a problem with inflation. It's higher than it's been published.
yeah.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is that we all
Did I say
agree.
yeah? No, I agree.
No, it is. Because if you also think about it, our December inflation,
No,
numbers
let
is
it
like
okay,
35,
I'm glad
37%.
you lad. I just do.
First, we agree that it's higher than it's presented.
Yeah.
Two is that it may not have been sort of handled as delicately and as quickly as it
Agreed.
should have,
That I
because you
agree.
have obviously this very expansionary fiscal policy, what would appear to be also, the tightening by the MPC. Now, given that situation, I would have thought that the MPC would take the decision and say, look, let's just take the bull by the horns. Let's try to address this problem as quickly as possible. That being attracting as much FPIs as possible that would hopefully help to put to bed the FX challenge that we have. Yeah, so you didn't be asking me that question you asked me. The only way to do that is to have the rates a lot higher at a stage where the real interest rates are positive. Let's not deceive ourselves.
So
no, wait. So there is the first thing I do know that, and I did speak about the MBS's number, the rebase. I had my reservations, especially the base year that they chose and all of that. Now, the thing I feel they should have done is continue the series for maybe another 6 to 12 months and show us the new series and publish both of them concurrently every month.
We spoke about that already. But
so that allows everybody to be able to be a little bit calmer. Now, the reason why I do believe that the MPC might be stolen, and I thought I've said, I was buyish hold when we talked about CBN MPC cotton rates, is because there isn't enough clarity about inflation as before to now for you to make a very informed decision about.
We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So basically, the CBN needs to, and the CBN does. The CBN does have a status.
No. I think everyone is saying no. Just to help you decide.
I'm saying
I don't think.
Why still deflecting?
No. What I want to say. No. What I want to say. Don't help me. What I want to say in response to Esili's point is, I do agree that it was not handled properly in terms of the inflation conversation. However, in the context of it being massaged is what I'm not agreeing with. I just believe... So
you think our inflation numbers is actually 23.8?
Based on the basket and the base year. You can't fault it. Okay, it's math.
Okay, so fine.
So what you're saying is still away inflation.
Let's even leave that. I think the bone I have to chew with this is raising.
Hawkish.
The hawkish rate.
So that one is.
Let's leave the whether they're massaging or not, right? Okay. So his point is MPR numbers need to go up.
Yeah.
Because
we need a positive real
return. Yeah.
And whether you agree with inflation numbers or not, he's got some point in there. So, but then has this got anything to do with stabilizing the exchange rate? Do you think maybe this is probably why you're seeing this disparity we're seeing now?
No, but it would help a lot because as I pointed to you, part of helping to solve that problem will be having sufficient dollar liquidity.
But how they do that with OMO though? So what they're doing with OMO is they're raising OMO. They know that okay. If I come to your sorry to call you, but if I come to your mindset, right? So it's like, okay, we don't know what's going on with inflation. We don't know. But we know that we can't operate in a tighter credit environment. So we can't raise rates. But we know that we need USD to come in to close the gap, this gap. So what we need to do is hike OMO. So it feels like, because now I'm thinking it through, it feels like that's what they're using OMO as a tool to.
But it goes both ways because we have this thing of sometimes just targeting one group of, or one set of perhaps investors. How about Nigerians that are international investors? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I hold dollars. Yeah, my DOM account.
Okay.
How do you incentivize me to convert that to Naira?
Yeah. I mean, but isn't that why they sell all this?
So I do agree
bonds?
with you. That has been.
That's not enough. It's not enough for Godre. Yes. So what I'm saying is that look, the idea is you want people to hold Naira. How do you incentivize them to hold Naira? The Naira rate needs to be higher.
Give them Naira.
In my view, it needs to be above 30%.
30%.
Yeah.
So in that sense,
I know
like
now,
for treasury bills.
Yeah.
But how are they going to pay for it?
No,
they can't pay.
Again, this is why you don't overspend as a government, because you find yourself here. Nothing you can do about it. Hear me out a little bit. Now, rates are high. We know the impact of that. It's obviously punitive to businesses, industries, etc. You know, goes without saying. but you want to do it in the shortest possible period.
Yeah.
Shortest possible period. Otherwise, you risk keeping inflation higher for longer.
Yes. Yeah.
In which case, you have to keep rates higher for longer.
Yeah.
So that was why around February, I think it was March, they had the first meeting. It was February, actually. I had advocated for moving quickly.
Yeah.
And then in the second meeting, hit it again, the same way you hit it the first time. Yeah? So that...
Moving quickly. How do you mean moving quickly?
As in-
Rate-wise.
So he increased the rates. He moved very high the first meeting. I'm saying he should have done the same thing in the second meeting as well. You know, but
Last year, that is.
Last year, yeah. I think the second meeting was in March.
Get the flow coming in. Then
But he hesitated a bit, and then we saw the same thing in subsequent meeting and subsequent meeting after that. So we're in a situation now where, if I want to put it kind of lightly, you know, everybody understands, it's like we're praying for inflation to fall. It doesn't work like that.
But that's where I get confused as well, because if you're saying let's have higher interest rates at 30%, and we know that creates a cascading effect because it then feeds into lending cost, and then that feeds into prices, goods and services.
So there are solutions for that. So there are solutions to that.
Yeah.
Critical industries, the government will create, you know, a special fund.
But we said no more intervention funds.
No, hold on. Okay. No, there'll be special arrangements for special industries that are very important. You know, you can't do without is there any country that doesn't
subsidy.
Is there any country that doesn't do that?
No.
Is there any country, even America?
No.
Is there any country that doesn't do that?
It here, haven't we?
No. You cannot avoid that.
I didn't follow them.
Even if the West tells you don't subsidize, well, tell me in America what crop or what commodity is not subsidized? Sugar is subsidized in the US.
Except when
corn is subsidized in the US.
So it was subsidized?
Corn.
Yeah. Wheat, corn, yeah.
I suppose, you know, when the West talks about subsidies, I suppose what they mean are, you know, subsidies that structurally create imbalances.
Yeah.
And that's what we've had with our petrol subsidies.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, coming back to this, I think that if they'd done it very quickly, you know, I don't know, if you take like amoxicillin, right? It's a very quick 7 day, is it 7 day or 14 day?
I don't know.
Anyways, it's supposed to be, I think, 7 day or 14 days. I don't remember, maybe 10 days.
Yeah.
But very heavy doses within that period, and it's done.
Yeah.
You're cured.
Yeah.
That's what they should have done as well.
So
that's the idea, is that it's heavy, but you do it very quickly, maybe for a period of about
what if it's not, right?
9. If it's
What if
no.
it's
So
not, what if the
I
problem,
wanted
the malaise
I
is
wanted to
so
say
harsh
I wanted to say two
that's-
things. So inflation in Nigeria might not be rising, might not be. We might not feel it's at the number the MBS is stating, but inflation has cooled.
I agree.
It's not rising at the level it was rising
I agree.
some time ago. Now, it tends to say that we're in a slowdown period, especially with its context of inflation rising. Now, whatever we do that increases rates will feed into the markets that speak to inflation. If we had hit it twice, I suspect that petrol might have increased. I suspect also that we might have had it feed into food prices. I also suspect one way or the other that it might have fed into anyway, that one is a market that is crazy on its own. I was going to talk about housing, but you know, it could feed into a lot more places, and that could also gallop inflation higher. What I worry about is that even a flow in of FX that might ease up the liquidity problems, the flow through to inflation in Nigeria is not a straight line. Now, we also FX going to 1.3. I think earlier this year. I mean, 1.4, 1.3 was
1.2.
It was
Appreciate, yeah.
it was appreciating. Naira was strengthening. In that period, inflation didn't significantly drop.
But we never even know what inflation was, though, because the MBS guys were tweaking numbers.
No,
because what you're trying to tell me is just
They were tweaking numbers.
Oh, not
Is that
sorry.
what
You
said?
see, I don't like that. I don't, so my point.
So what are you trying to say? Are you now trying to say with your full chest that a stronger Naira doesn't equate to a cooling off of inflation?
I'm saying that there was a period where FX.
Yes, but you know why that wouldn't happen, Tunji? It was so short. And look, the way the market works is market works on expectations. Actually, the biggest work of the central bank is managing expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry,
to make sure that
expectations.
everybody knows what is coming. Yeah. I agree with that.
But I'm still curious though. So if we haven't attracted a level of funding that we expected at 27.5%.
Where are we going to get it from? As in what?
What's the chance they're going to get at 30%?
Do you know how far Turkey had to take rates before they were able to get sufficient interest in local currency?
How far?
60%.
60?
Not 2 years ago. Last year. They've only just started dropping rates recently. 60. Argentina, do you know how much?
No, but Argentina is a
do you know how much?
I'm just, are we going to have a country if we go beyond 30%?
You will.
survive.
You will.
So,
I'm not saying, I'm not advocating.
loves interest rates, by the way.
So hold on.
Loves interest
I'm
rates.
not advocating.
Are you
for
saying that we
60%
didn't have a
rates.
country when rates were above 30 in Nigeria? Interest
I'm
rates
just
above
wondering,
30?
see, like, how
Well, it's
does
not
it,
for you to borrow
but,
at 40%.
how does it pan out? Like, we've been doing 27.5%, north of 20% for some time now. We still have immense liquidity in the system. We're still running at over 100 trillion in money supply.
Why do you think we have
Right.
excess liquidity in the system?
We're still
That's
saying
the question now.
Why do you think
I don't know.
we don't know. We've been asking ourselves
It's
that.
the government.
that's the conundrum.
It's the government.
Is it the government?
It's the
How? But the government
government.
said they're broke. Government is running a high fiscal deficit.
Let me tell you what's happening. When they get the FAC allocations, okay, remember that FAC allocation, you convert dollars into Naira.
Yeah.
That's what's flooding the market. And the central bank has stated this, that they have seen a significant correlation between FAC allocations and system liquidity.
Yeah.
And that's why they've been quite aggressive with mopping up liquidity in the market with treasury bills. Last week.
So aren't you solving the wrong? Your solution isn't it for the wrong problem? Because if it's FAC allocation, that is causing. So why then increase interest? Because that's not going to work then.
That means that there should be more of a DMO thing. And so if you're trying to,
You need both. You need both.
Yeah, for treasury bills rather than treasury.
No. We're talking about the FAC allocations flooding the market.
So let me tell you my
interest rates.
thinking in that is he was talking about attracting local USD or locally owned USD or locals owned USD into
and also internationals as well, because again, as much as you put out almost that, I guess you think are attractive, credibility is also a problem. If the internationals don't feel that you're credible enough, or they're having to compare your rate to say Turkey or some of the other EM markets that have perhaps more credibility, they're more stable but higher rates, those make a lot more sense.
So
Turkey, for example, has enjoyed that. Nigeria is not it's not an island on its own. We're competing for FX from different markets. To give you an example, we've seen a big wave of fund flow from developed markets to emerging markets over the course of the last 18 months. Nigeria hasn't been a beneficiary of that. Haven't you asked yourself why?
Why?
Yeah, we're not competitive enough.
We're not competitive. We haven't established a level of credibility in reforms to attract.
We started.
But I thought that's what we've been achieving now. I mean, we've got a lot of accolades for our reforms. Outside Nigeria. I mean, I've been there, so they've said it. So, are they all audio accolades?
It's not credible enough. So my point is that again, I give credit to the government for everything that has been they've done. Okay,
started.
But you see, the reality is that we still have a long way to go, and I've always said that we need to start at the drawing board. What is the development plan? An 8-point agenda is not a development plan.
We don't have an 8-point agenda.
That's it.
Ugo Dre is the one that knows the plan.
We need hope.
Ugo Dre is the only one that
The
knows
need
the
hope
hope.
is based on an 8-point agenda.
He's
Not a
the only one
development
that knows
plan.
Yeah, I doesn't like the way you call it 8-point agenda. It's called renewed hope.
Okay. All right. Under renewed hope, all right, it will take you, I would say, minimum 6 weeks to 8 weeks to register and open a bank account for a business. Are you aware? How many of you have opened a bank account recently for a new business?
Yeah. So
Under
you have
renewed
to
hope.
register the business.
Do you all remember that there was a time you could do both in just one day?
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult now, though? I haven't registered a business in a while.
Just bureaucracy. Just bureaucracy. The same. I'll say that, for example, CAC have not laid off more than 50% of their staff. So there's still a core part of the staff that existed in 2005 that are still there.
But I'm going to say something. I want to cause trouble. So there were misleading headlines over the last couple of days.
There's something called Scrum. Have you heard of Scrum, or was it?
Scrum.
Yeah. Scrum. Do you know how long it takes to get a Scrum certificate?
Yeah.
You know how long it takes you? 3 weeks minimum.
Is that how long it takes you guys?
And that's 3 weeks.
Drop a comment. How long did it take you to get your Scrum? Even though I never liked that word, Scrum. But anyway, your Scrum certificate, how long did it take you?
And that's 3 weeks when you hustle.
Wow.
If you don't even hustle, they're just there.
I like that word, hustle.
I had a guy that can get it out in 48 hours.
We're going to say something.
So there was a few misleading headlines about Nigeria's borrowing numbers.
So we're going to get to that.
Oh,
yeah. We're
okay.
Get to that.
No, but it feeds into the conversation we're getting to that.
All right. We're getting to that. So I'm still trying to, because
to answer your question,
interest rate is what's giving me chills.
We're solving two different problems. One problem is lack of sufficient FX. And I hope I've been able to address your initial question around FX. Like, okay, why is the spread wide? There's not enough dollar liquidity. Yeah. You solve that by having a high interest rate that's able to attract sustainable...
So when the spread was thin, did we have high dollar liquidity at that time then?
When it was thin?
Yes. When it was less than 1%?
Yes, it was. The market was comfortable with the level of liquidity in the market at the time, yes.
So are you sure this isn't some sort of speculative buying because of lower oil prices, which is typically what happens?
That's what happens, yes, because the risk have climbed.
Yeah.
Risk have climbed. Lower oil prices, what does lower price mean? It means that the central bank will not get sufficient FX. You're not going to wait. What people don't understand is that the players in the market are not stupid. They're very savvy. They're savvier than you think. They're not going to wait for oil price to drop to 60 or for it to start recording in the reserves before they move. They move quickly.
By the way, Turkish benchmark interest rate was set at 46% in May. So you can survive 6%?
It can. We've been there. In fact, there was a time when
when we were there, was it military era?
Military era. So I'll say that.
Can we survive 46% interest rate in this country?
Can we survive?
Is that going to attract the flow of dollars?
Can we survive
to get there?
Can we survive, or should we survive? Are two different questions.
Let's even say 35%. I mean, you're saying we shouldn't get there with 35%?
32.
Because based 32, on your analogy, right?
Yeah.
Even at 35%, we're probably negative real interest. If I go by your analogy, because you believe that interest rate,
maybe zero, slightly positive.
Exactly.
I estimate that inflation is actually more closer to 30 today.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at
like 29 to 30 or 30?
30-ish.
30-ish.
Okay. 30.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So 30% interest rate, does that solve problems?
So here's the thing. I don't like it. But you see, I think,
because I know Arnold's answer, so there's no need asking.
Because I'm real return. When you say positive real return, my ears perk up.
So you did say something about the CBN's job about managing expectations. I would be more comfortable accepting a 30% if I knew clearly what the plan was. And I mean clearly what blow by blow.
How do you mean plan was?
So how long is it going to be at 30%? What are we trying to achieve?
So the thing is, my problem with 30%.
No, he has a good point. He has a good point in the sense that since probably February when they constituted the MPC, they've been talking about inflation targeting. We still don't have that today. So what is it? What's the target?
What they're targeting.
Yeah, but the MBS is throwing them off though. I think you can't deny the fact
Arnold, the CBN has one of the most advanced statistics departments in Nigeria.
But regardless,
I dare say at par or maybe even higher than
So what are you saying? I'm
saying everyone has thrown off inflation numbers this year. Do you realize that if that December inflation is going to look like a 35 to 37% based on this rebase? So our inflation numbers this year is actually it's and I think that the same thing is happening to the central bank. So they can't come out and say, no, guys, these are the real inflation numbers because it's not their job to quote inflation numbers. So regardless of who they have in their team, they can't come out.
This is why I quickly went in when Esili spoke about the numbers. Numbers are numbers, right? Statistic numbers are statistic numbers. When they were setting the base year, we were here. I spoke about it.
We're all in agreement.
Once you pick, so it's like saying you take a picture from this angle and you only see my ear. And then you're confused why you can't see my other ear. You can only see because of this angle.
Yeah, but
you have chosen the base year. You have chosen the items in the basket. This is the only number you will get.
Yeah. None of those factors, in my opinion, affect each other in the sense that your target inflation, should not necessarily be determined or be moved by wherever MBS is saying inflation is today. Not necessarily.
You have to use
not necessarily.
No, see, my point being
there
that
are multiple things.
My point being that even at 21, even if it's 21, it's still super high.
What if my target? Okay, what if the MBS have come out to say?
So the MBS should be saying our target for inflation is 8%. We've been there before.
But I thought that
we've been at 7%. We've been at
7%.
Yeah, but current government says 15%.
15%.
And for
50%
this year,
is fantastic.
For this end of the year. Yeah.
No, we can get there.
No, they're not going to get there. No, they're not going to get there.
Based on this rebase, we can't actually be in the team.
Based on this rebase, yes. That was the plan.
My point is, once you
tweak the numbers.
No, so it's not tweak. You did not tweak the numbers. You chose a base year. And I said it here. By the time you pick a base year that is your highest inflationary year, anything after that year is downwards, right? Because you chose a year that was hyper high in terms of inflation movement. Everything else is downwards. Now, you cannot, if this conversation can be had before we chose that base year. When we're choosing the base year, we said, no, we can't use this base year.
So you're right, but it doesn't change the trend.
So yes, it doesn't change the trend. Yeah,
it doesn't change the trend.
It doesn't change the trend.
So
my point is
that you rebase or you do whatever you do, it won't change food prices from going 30% if that's how much they went.
It doesn't.
Or the price of
it doesn't.
transportation or energy. It doesn't change any of that.
It doesn't. But again, this is the thing I was saying. It had already started cooling. So whether you rebased or not, it was always going to, moderate.
Having said that, having said everything I've said, it may, and again, I don't want to sound like I don't sound like I'm
a pessimist.
I'm awarding them or rewarding them for the actions.
Okay. I like this.
It may have also been a stroke of genius.
By doing what?
By
rebasing.
Yeah, no, not the rebasing. The shenanigans that happened to get it down to where it is, because as you remember, I said that the work of the central bank is
managing
expectations. Okay, so if the MBS is now guiding the market to much lower inflation levels over time, that's what the market starts to build up. Yeah, and that's very important. And I've started seeing that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when it first came out in February, March, people were like, what nonsense is this? Now Godre is comfortable quoting it.
Yeah.
I can quote it. I can't be on any platform and comfortably say inflation is 24. I can't do that.
So this is the thing I totally agree. I'm always on the side of the MBS, so I'm always going to accept this. But I still think that there was a lot of questions to be answered why you picked, because you rebased two different statistic numbers that same period. You picked two different base years for both of them.
It doesn't matter what base you use. Look, I track the numbers on the spreadsheet. It's not 24%. It's not 24%.
All right.
But like I said, stroke of genius, might be a stroke of genius, could work out in the end.
Stroke of genius. Talking about stroke of genius, the president and his team announced a few days ago that Nigeria was planning to raise $22 billion. And I guess that's what Tinubu was trying to clarify. And of course, I think they came out later to clarify that it wasn't a straight up $22 billion today. I think it's $22 billion over a 2-year period. Could even stretch longer. And this has got people wondering. We just recently, made a lot of noise around paying off IMF loan.
Maybe that's why we paid it.
We currently have 144
I'm surprised it didn't
trillion.
happen sooner.
By my count, 144 trillion or so in public debt. And we're about to add, in fact, external debt alone is about $46 billion. So we're likely going to add another $22 billion over the next 2 years in public debt, hitting 80 plus $billion. I've seen a few messages from Tunji and Arnold. They seem bullish about this. Esili, let me hear from you first.
Wait,
no.
They're bullish about it?
Yeah.
He's bullish.
Oh, interesting.
They're bullish.
No, he's not bullish.
They can't
So, can I defend myself?
You will defend yourself. Let's hear from Esili.
Because he is about to tear one.
Yeah.
Are you scared? Bullish about it? Let me defend myself.
I don't remember. As we're talking,
I don't know why.
as we're talking, no, wait. As we're talking, I started to remember a lot of interviews I've seen of Esili, and I'm just remembering. Oh my God, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah, you better get it. I have receipts.
He's very hawkish.
Tunji and Arnold being bullish.
No, I am bullish.
Tunji's first response was like, way to go. We should have started this since.
No, I am
Esili,
bullish.
let's hear from you. $22
Looking at me with
billion.
different eyes now, like.
If I have to be honest, it's reckless. It's reckless.
Wow.
And I think you said it yourself. You said, I think that 144 figure, that figure can't be correct. It's probably 150, and that was in December. Okay,
Yes,
we're in
it's
June.
150.
Yeah.
Okay, so this year
Total
we'll probably
debt.
close out at 185 trillion.
Yeah. That's if we take the money in.
No,
If
we're
we
going
take
to. We potentially would. We potentially would.
Oh, okay.
So we'll probably close this year at about 185 trillion in debt. Next year, maybe 200 trillion. I always like to quote Milton Friedman, who said, "There's no such thing as an unbalanced budget. There's no such thing as an unbalanced budget."
Yeah, he balances one. Shaba will balance.
It will balance. And what he essentially means by that is what the government essentially does is that they shift the pain
Down the road.
to the guy on the street, to us. The way you pay for it is inflation.
Yeah.
If you did accounting like I did, so I trained an accountant at a very young age. I think at like 11 or 12, I started doing for every credit balance there's a debit balance. so you can
For every credit entry, there's a debit entry.
there's no suspense account.
Accountants are going to heaven.
All of them are not. There's just even one.
So you can't just spend so much and
Without
expect
having it
that
some
without having it have inflation
kickback
impact.
somewhere.
I believe that's why they're trying to manage it using mostly external.
Yeah, that's what
debt.
I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, I was gonna
Okay.
say. Yeah, okay, you hit it.
But still, I do worry because when government is spending so much, my general sense is that government is not the best allocator of capital. And so what the government's primary work should be is enabling private sector to do all that work. It's not, government shouldn't come tell me they want to build roads or build schools or, some of the
We
things.
should do that then.
The private sector. I mean, you can.
Private sector, are they going to build roads without tolling?
So
What's wrong with tolling?
no. So,
Nothing wrong with tolling. I've got no problem with tolling.
What's
I'm
wrong with
just
tolling?
asking.
so
Nothing wrong
I
with it.
get your point. And
What's
he's-
wrong
what
with
he's saying is-
tolling?
What's
what
wrong
he's saying-
with tolling?
No.
All
There's
government,
nothing wrong with tolling.
Oh, okay. I thought you
all
had issues
government
with it.
should do, should focus on, is creating the nominal environment. That job right now is making sure that CAC can
So are you saying
open an
that
account in a day.
this?
Scrum.
I mean, there's been a lot
Scrum
of
certificates can be issued in a day.
But some people will not chop now.
That
if you do it like
when
that.
I ship a cargo from the United States or from China, when it gets to the shores of Nigeria, it clears within 24 hours.
some people will not chop.
No. So
So let
If
me
you
take
do
the
that-
other side a little bit.
no.
though, this stuff.
Let me start. Let me start.
There's a cost for everything. The same way that, we have, the cost of energy now. I think I pay something like, I definitely pay less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay?
much is it?
How does it cost me? I don't have power.
No,
You
I
don't-
don't
you don't have
I pay more than
10 cents
I
is
pay more than
160.
10 cents.
No, I'm saying that's what is that not what the public rate? That's what the public rate.
Yeah,
is.
Probably rate is
It's about 10
around
cents.
20.
Okay.
10 cents is 160 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's about 250 per kilowatt hour, isn't it? Oh, am I using
No,
money?
Oh, no.
public
That's your
rate is like
blended
80
rates.
naira.
No.
Yeah.
Band B is like
Band A is 250 now, 200 or something.
yes,
isn't
but
it?
band B is
No, we
is
speak
about
band,
80.
we speak band A language here.
I hope so.
Sorry.
That's what we do.
It's not good for the brand. It's not good for the brand.
We are band A locations.
But what I want to get clear is you agree that we do need massive infrastructure build.
But it's just
It's
that
not government that's
that
going to
should
build
do
it.
Bam.
It's not government.
So here-
What's BAM what now?
No.
not
You just
government.
added a way to go about times. What's BAM? I'm trying to
Let me
understand.
let me cook. Let me cook.
Let's let you cook.
Cook. There are two things. And he spoke earlier about COVID period,
Yeah.
where the US pumped in 7 point?
50 billion there.
That's because there's an efficient mechanism where you
That led to inflation anyway, but go on.
inflation will happen.
go on.
What we need, because the truth about it is that there's no way we are going to build massive infrastructure without
this.
affecting inflation. You're having it one way or the other. The issue is that we need to get there. Now, we do not have efficient mechanism to drive capital, or at least to enable it in such a way that it efficiently drives to building infrastructure. The problem I have is that, especially in Nigeria, we do have some very great thinking investors that are thinking national build. And they're there. They're fantastic. If for any reason Nigeria were to do this same 750 billion kind of thing to private sector, I generally tend to believe that the results will be a lot worse than if government spends it themselves.
Does any of you know where the best road? Does any of you know where the best road
We
in
know
Lagos
have we
is?
not
The
seen
best
these
road.
Nigerians?
The best road infrastructure in Lagos. I don't even know where it is.
Bagada Expressway.
That's Airport Road.
Yeah.
Do you know where it is? The best road?
Private sector built.
Private sector built.
And no, that one was
Private sector built. What level of incentive did the government need to give?
10 million is good too.
What did no?
Yeah.
That told me I gave it a few. You see, when it's private sector that is building it, okay, they're thinking 10 years out. That road to that airport road is going to be there for a very long time. It's not moving.
Let's talk about the airport.
It's not
road.
gonna crack.
Let's talk about the airport.
It's not
road.
gonna crack.
How is the person collecting his money back?
No, so the way he
Taxes.
collected his money was through taxes. Yeah,
Exactly.
No toll, exactly.
So we can't.
So doesn't that model make sense then?
So you can't convert all your infrastructure bill to tax rebates. You can't do that.
You can't do all that. But can I just add to what we're talking about in general? Before we started this show, Tony and I were having a conversation about pension funds.
Yeah.
The pension funds, again, you guys are going to say, I'm putting myself out there. Pension funds can be the most significant economic agent in a country,
They should be.
larger than the central
They
bank.
should be.
We tend to pay too much attention to central bank.
I agree with you. Yeah, they should be.
We can institutionalize national development by empowering pensions.
But isn't that what they're doing already?
Yes.
They are funding FGM bonds, and FGM bonds are useful for
Exactly. Exactly. So
I
that's
think
so
pension funds should be going directly to infrastructure, not through FGN.
So what I think the administration is doing is that they're signaling
They should be
they're
investing.
signaling
They should be
that they're
Sticking
going
money, they
in the
should be.
direction of pension reforms, perhaps serious pension reforms. I've seen that at least in the pension DG, that she's reform minded.
I was saying it here last week, and everybody was saying I was plugging in.
If we can sit down and take building the pension industry seriously, it will solve a lot of our infrastructure problems. It's going to take years, but you need to nurture it. To give you some examples, when Chile started building its pension industry in 1981, they started with zero. They were around 0% penetration. Let me just be clear. So penetration is essentially the total
level of people that have pension accounts.
the AUM, total assets divided by GDP.
Okay.
So it started about roughly 0%.
Okay.
In the first 5 years, by year 5, or T plus 5 years, they were around somewhere about, I think it was 7%. By year 10, they had hit about 30%
Of GDP.
of GDP.
Wow.
By year 20, they were already at 60, 65%. Do you know where Nigeria is?
We're sub 20.
Again, bear in mind that we've been at it for 20 years.
Yeah.
We're 8%.
Yeah. Sub 10, actually. I beg your pardon.
8%. And it's not that there's no pool of funds or, the pool of funds. I mean, he's an asset
I've
manager.
been at it for 20 years now.
You've been at it for 20 years. It's just that we have not consciously decided to let this thing grow, to
But
build
that's a
it.
different conversation, though, and which
No.
we can actually segue to and then come back to bond.
No,
true,
But
right?
his
Very true.
conversation
Yeah.
is around what we were talking about, the funds. If it came for private sector,
No, hold on. We're going to get there. So I'm trying to get to this point, and it's one of my favorite areas when it comes to capital formation. So we're at less than 10%, sub 10%, 8% of GDP for pension.
It's been stagnant for the last 5 years.
Last week we were here discussing around the same thing, and Tunji basically was saying, look, he's in the micro pension space, and he's saying that the construct of how we define informal market is probably wrong, right? And I've also said that perhaps one of the reasons why you're seeing these sort of low numbers compared to GDP, whether it's tax to GDP, whether it's pension AUM to GDP, it's also because of how informal our market is. So where you have a highly informal society or a highly informal market, you tend to see these sort of low ratios.
In 1981, are you saying that Chile wasn't informal, largely informal? As informal as we were?
Probably were.
It
but
was.
I think as they've gone on, they've probably gone on. I don't have Chile's numbers.
It has. But let me
So,
put,
isn't Chile more formal than it is now in terms of GDP?
because they have deliberately grown that. But I'll add some context, okay? I would say that I think that we haven't even so again, are you aware that the whole micro pension scheme in Nigeria was more a political move than, I think a well-articulated plan to address pension capital formation? Are you aware?
Can you explain?
I agree, yeah.
It was political in the sense that I think that the PENCOM administration at the time were so eager to put something in front of Mr. President to, at least portray themselves as doing something meaningful. We're trying to address this. It was so big. In fact, it was rushed. The launch of the micro pension scheme was rushed, and you can ask anybody.
I mean,
It wasn't something that was fully backed.
the biggest one is here, so.
It wasn't a project. It wasn't a project that was fully backed by the industry, by the players. That's the fact. And in fact, there are some of them that have decided, I'm not even interested. Do you know that only one player, one operator accounts for more than 50% of the total micro pension fund accumulation today?
Is that our bar? Has to be our bar then.
No, it's Leadway.
No,
Leadway
Leadway.
Leadway
Is it doing a
pension.
micro pension space?
now every PFA is.
Well,
Every
most of them
PFA
are.
is. Every
But they
PFA
account
is.
for almost 50% of the total because they've deliberately decided to grow that.
Of their AUM,
No.
Of
Total
AUM,
micro pension
pension.
sign
in
ups.
Nigeria. The total funds, total assets, Leadway accounts for almost 50% of it. It's small. I mean, it's not more than some 800 billion or so.
Those numbers might be because I do know that Stanbic and
Well, Stanbic in micro
what
pensions
used
as
to
well?
be
No.
what used to
I know
be ARM.
If you're a
has-
Stanbic, for example, what's the incentive to chase micro pension? You said it yourself. It's not profitable.
So I agree that the framework to start with
Yeah.
was not encompassing. And
But hold on, I just want to quickly address Ugodre's point so we don't get carried away. So I think that we kind of went down perhaps an area of that business that was still long-tailed. The formal sector, you've not captured. You're chasing something that requires a totally different set of tools.
So
capture.
haven't we captured the formal sector?
No, we've not.
no, we've
we've not.
What's your basis?
No, we've not. We've not.
My
What data are you looking at?
my basis is that even if you speak to PENCOM, if you read the PENCOM reports, okay, there are quite a lot of formal businesses, okay,
That are not reporting.
compliant.
Yeah.
That's why they have what they call a PCC, your PENCOM certificate, compliance certificate. There are a lot of defaulters. Now, part of the problem they've had is, and I've said this very publicly, is that PenCom should not be responsible for prosecuting defaulters or non-compliant employers. They should cede that power to the PFAs, because the PFAs are much closer to what's happening. It will take a cycle of almost, 12, 18 months.
Why should the PFA be the one?
But I think
enforcing compliance?
So there's a long conversation around it, because
penalizing?
the thing is that if you were to leave a lot of Nigerians today and say, we have decided, come and take your pensions.
They wouldn't. They probably wouldn't.
No, as in come and take it now.
Okay, take it now, yeah.
As in come and carry your money.
No, they'll take it.
So the amount of Nigerians that will go and take their money.
They'll take it. There's a big trust issue, which I think even PenCom needs to address.
The trust is one thing, but I think the bigger context is that quite a large number of people do not know why they are complying.
Very true.
To begin with.
Very true.
So they just know the law says we should do it.
So as part of even addressing that trust issue is you need to tackle, people need to understand why. Okay, take for example, so as part of that train of guys who were doing AVC, and it wasn't like I was one of those guys that was cashing every month. No, the funds are still there. But you know what's happened? Over when I began contributing, which was when the dollar, the Naira, it's a additional voluntary contribution. Okay. So outside your mandatory contribution, you top it up. Yeah. So I think I started contributing when dollar was still about 150 or thereabout. Okay, so from that time, everything I put in there is devalued. You've lost 9/10 of your investment. So I don't think there's anybody who's been contributing that to pensions in Nigeria that's happy. No one's happy. But the regulators, the operators have just kept quiet. Nobody has come to a podium to say, hey, we're sorry, we apologize. But we're turning a new leaf. These are the reforms that we're outlining to make things different. We're introducing the ability now for all pension funds to invest crypto. Offshore.
No, buy crypto.
To invest offshore. To hedge against Naira volatility.
Maybe something
or
as simple as Euro bonds or something like that.
But to give you some context.
Don't buy Euro bonds at the moment.
To give you context. To give you some more context, you know that there were closed pension funds that returned about plus 60% in 2024. When the local guys, they are Nigerians as well.
We're doing
20-something%.
So, yeah. Interesting. So
explain why. But I need, so I can't be here just
because you seem to have been quiet. So I wonder whether you've because you've been. But Tunji has always been
So they are very. So they are very many things. There are very many things. I completely believe in the micro pension space. I have gone into it, seen all the gaps, and we have been able to pretty much make a lot of headway despite the gaps. I know who has the highest AUM. I know who has the highest customers because we signed a lot of these customers for this.
No, it can work. It can work.
Now, the thing I understand is that the framework as of today is impeding the PFAs from doing it. And sometimes the PFAs do not even have the structural capacity and resources to be able to do it. Now, you've also not allowed for third parties like myself to be able to do it. So outside Tunji's passion or our drive, we shouldn't be doing it because, even the people who are doing it for tend to always want to, make it difficult for us to be able to assist. So I do agree that, the structure to which it was created, because even segmentation, just simple segmentation, it has been created for people that are supposedly poor, but they're large set of people that are.
Are you aware, for example, that what the law says is that you need to have a minimum of 3 staff for you to have
do mandatory
pension? Yeah. That's wrong. So is that not somewhat like discriminatory? So you're saying that because I work for an employer that only has 2 staff, so I can't be entitled to pension? So I would then direct that to PenCom and say, look, why can't you just make it compulsory across the board? So you see where I'm going now with formal sector?
Yeah. So that's the you spoke. Was it Chile you spoke about earlier? The example.
But I thought
the Chilean
cost is also tied to it.
No, it's not cost. It's not cost. Again, the micro pension case.
Ogodre, how many domestic staff do you employ today?
I mean, not as much as Arnold.
Yeah, but give me a number. Okay, 1 and 3.
Yeah,
1 and 3. Okay.
Arnold does probably.
That means
Are you saying that you don't love them enough to set something aside for pension?
Love them enough.
Or even if you haven't thought about it.
Just careful, yeah.
Or even if you've not thought about it, now that I mentioned to you, doesn't it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
to be able to set them up.
It does.
I don't think, to be honest there, Esili, I don't agree. And
really?
Yeah. Not that
No.
I wouldn't want to set aside money for people, but we're all businessmen. This is how it works.
Cost.
At the end of the day, you look at your cost, you look at your bottom line.
No.
So every
No, Arnold,
wait
let
now,
me finish.
it's a fact. So where you
I put money away in mutual funds.
Wait.
So
I'm talking about that's you. I'm
Arnold,
talking
let him
about
finish. I will.
the average
it's almost like a
average businessman
Well, you
anywhere in the
should.
world. Not
I need
just
to plug something.
average
there.
businessman anywhere in the world,
Open a
right?
mutual fund for them or put some, even if it's
No,
1,000 naira a month,
Arnold.
put
Honestly,
aside.
that's
And when
that's
they're
You know, he
leaving
keeps saying
you, they
mutual
cash
fund
out.
because
honestly, on the streets, that doesn't help.
It doesn't.
It doesn't help.
So when they
I mean,
leave, they leave you with a bucket of cash.
you have a business that is struggling day by day to survive.
To even
right?
pay that
you don't
that
have
salary.
you don't have any support from any bank. You're basically on your own. You're struggling. You're basically you're bootstrapping just to grow.
Yeah.
So any additional cost
Is
you're
a
giving that
major cost,
employer,
yeah.
it's a major cost to him.
So this is what we've done.
Is it
So that's
possible
the
that
issue.
that additional cost you've had to incur could be a morale booster and then a booster for your revenues?
It's not a
No.
morale booster
For the
anything.
cost of so
If you've done business in the street,
let me say
booster.
let me say there's two things, and I shared one of the stories here before. I was in a supermarket, one of the biggest supermarkets in Nigeria, one of two. There are few brands that are really popular. One of them, I was in the supermarket and I was buying something, and I heard the ladies that were, so I think they had spoken to them about pensions, and then one that understood it more than the other ones was explaining to the other ones like, you can't take all your money, or you can only take it after you retire, a little part of it, and the other one's like, no, I don't want to, so it's like they gave them an option whether they wanted to opt in or not, right? And this was just me listening to them. So even the staff, when you speak it to them, do not want it.
Because I've had the same conversation with mine, right?
Let me get there.
I explain the provident fund.
So this is the thing. Even if you explain it to them,
No, but I'm talking about what I've explained.
Let me go. So one of the things we've realized, one of the things we've seen is that you want to, because anything you want people to invest in, they need to be personally
on board.
They need to be personally invested.
That's why the government makes it mandatory. Okay, so you talk about supermarkets. So Godre was asking, who are the guys in the formal sector that are not participating? Supermarkets, hotels. I didn't want to come out here and just start naming names.
Yeah,
schools.
No, but
The thing is, for me, right?
We've been able to hire. We've been able to sign up.
Let me just speak. Sorry, you're underestimating people, because I've had the same conversation with my staff, and I've created a provident fund where I've said a portion of your salary I'll put away in the money market fund, and when you leave, you're going to have a potential X amount. And you can go ahead and start a business, and everyone has been, yes, I'll do this, and I'm currently doing it.
But Esili just said here now that he's done AVC, and his boss probably lost 90% of the value.
So guys,
what's the incentive?
Guys,
for,
so again, I'm saying all of this in the future that we'd like to build. A reformed pension industry that takes into account the fact that you cannot just allow people's money to rot. Okay. Pension funds should be able to invest abroad, to hedge against, local politics or macroeconomic instability. And so those are kind of the reforms that I'm hoping that the new DG will obviously bring to
So one of the things we've done, and your people might be the exception. No, it's true. They and I've spoken to a lot of people. It was until we started bundling micro pensions with health insurance that it really took off. Because at that point, every staff, they see the pensions as an add-on.
The person wants to chop today, you're telling the person
because
for
they now know that they can go to the hospital, because they probably have been nursing something. They have been nursing something for a while. That you now tell them you can go to the hospital. So what I do is that
I don't pay the threshold. I'll pay you below the threshold, but that difference is what goes into your
Health insurance.
No, not health insurance. Into a pension
Into
or
mutual fund, you know,
that kind
so
of thing.
you kind of decide it by yourself.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. So we now, and because we understand that it is a cost issue, right? Because I say this when I'm talking about informal sector workers in Africa, I say that they can't afford to fall ill because that means they miss work and they need that money. And a lot of them can't afford to die because death for a lot of informal sector workers is plunge. No, what I mean is that it plunges their family into deeper poverty.
But Tuni, you do this already, so I know that you're quite aware that they already do this type of savings in one form or shape. So adagio and things like that, they already do it.
Yes.
So the thing is, what.
Is that payment thing where everybody puts
Agile. So what the regulation that created micropensions initially, and I do know that PENCOM, either this regime or the previous one, agree that it's inadequate, right? They did not fully think of the encompassing nature of Nigerians. I hope that the new
all right, guys.
system
We're
will.
done over an hour already, and we should be going to buy Solana. But let's now go back to this debt issue. So let me play devil's advocate. So we've got people like Tunji and Arnold saying that, look,
I've still not said my bit on debt
myself. Yeah, I beg.
I give you guys a chance now.
When you do that,
Wait, now when I land,
It was only Esili
when I land,
we told us we could.
I
people like Tunji and Arnold are saying, look, way to go. It's about time
Let's
we
high
borrow.
five.
We have the $22 billion because we do need infrastructure. I think we all agree we do need infrastructure.
Yeah.
We all agree we need to
That's
drive
cool.
GDP growth rate. GDP growth rate needs to go up, which is meant to be one of the last topics anyway. GDP growth rate needs to go up, so you can't go up
5%.
if we don't stimulate the economy. Tunji has come here. I think Tunji was at 7%. So let me allow Arnold now. Like, so why are you so bullish about it?
Okay. It's not that I'm bullish. It's just I'm just saying I understand.
So you're telling Nigerians now that we should go and borrow extra $22 billion.
Yeah, I mean, listen, borrowing is what we do, right? Seriously, but first of all, our debt to GDP is 50% versus in emerging markets. Global emerging markets was 74%. So we're fine in that aspect, right? Everyone's talking about debt to GDP, but if you think about it relative
Debt service to revenue.
But that's misleading. Sorry, sorry for interrupting. But again, I have to correct that because it's a very, very poor notion. So when you lend somebody money, you don't lend against
his assets, right?
the assets.
Lend against ability to repay.
Income.
Income. Yeah, that's revenue.
So the best way to measure capacity to pay
You're going to go up. Will you stop?
is government revenue to debt.
Yeah. Okay.
With that puts us in the same category as countries that are currently in the debt crisis.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Arnold, you have a comeback.
No, not to that, because he's not wrong about that. But what I was just going to say was, I'm actually surprised that it's taking this long to actually borrow. If you think about it, from the start of the year, Q1 to dates, budget versus actual, right? Our oil budget is $75. Actual is an average of $70, $71 per barrel. Is oil. What else is off? A few other things are off. Our barrel,
the production
2.1, we average about 1.63 or so. We should have actually been coming to the markets when this started. So for me, it's taking us long. I'm actually surprised it's taking us this long. One thing I like about this is it's coming for external financing and not looking at local. I think locally we've probably issued or borrowed about 2-point-something trillion. Our plan was 7 trillion or so. Done about 39% or just under 40%. I think that him coming for external debt financing is protecting the local markets, the local economy, and local investors. It's allowing the DMO to reduce borrowing costs, which I see go down. Are you all aware that there's something called the Fiscal Responsibility Act?
Yeah,
of course.
Do you know what the Fiscal Responsibility Act says about that? Budget deficit. No. It's not 5.
Is it 4-point-something%?
3.
Is it 3? No.
3. You cannot spend more than 3% of your
GDP,
your revenue. Your revenue.
Is it revenue or GDP?
3%. So GDP. 3% of
We'll get
GDP.
creative around it.
3% of GDP. That's a law. So in other words, all this spending for the last since 2014,
I've been
illegal. Only legal to the extent that, of course, the lawmakers approve it.
But
To the extent that lawmakers approve it. But I've actually seen lawmakers in session saying, look, I wasn't aware.
Yeah, but they've said this year that they were planning to reduce that number to reduce that to comply with the act, right? But now that's why this was quite a surprise, and that's why I'm wondering why you're bullish about it. You're saying that we should break the law and borrow a lot more money because you think we need to boost infrastructure development in the country.
We've been pushing over 5% for the last couple of years.
So the thing
that's why I'm wondering why there are a few things.
I think the biggest problem in everything is that there isn't a lot of clarity for at least people that are onlookers and people who are co-partakers of this drive. So
when you say clarity, how do you mean?
So borrowing is one part. Paying back use of funds. Everything needs to be a clear document. No, chill. Now let me finish. Okay. So everything needs to be a clear document, and it helps everybody, including Esili, to be able to be at peace. Because the truth about it is that borrowing is hardly ever a problem, right? The issue is
how you use it,
and more importantly, how you return it.
Yeah.
Right? If those two things are clear to us in such a way that we know that even if
but those two things they never care.
No. Arnold.
No country does really what they do.
How many times are they going to slap you before you get wise?
No. How many times? No. But this is the thing. This is the thing, right? I can't remember the last time we got clarity after Soludo being CBN governor.
You're aware that when they began the rehabilitation of the Lagos-Ibadan, Lagos-Benin Expressway, our debt was about somewhere under 40 trillion. Yeah?
That's during the Buhari administration.
During the Buhari administration, when he came in. And they told us that they were going to, rebuild the roads, etc. Now we're over 150 trillion. We haven't finished those projects.
Yeah. So again, this is
your worries.
No. See,
his worries.
Chill. No, it's also players. So these things are all work together.
No, but Tunji, for me, it's difficult because they've shown you on paper.
Yes.
That what we're using this money for is recurrent expenditure. I hope people are aware.
No, but they said infrastructure. No. They've listed a few things now.
Guy, relax now.
They listed a few things. They're quite transparent stuff.
Look, anybody who's really serious about doing infrastructure, you write which infrastructure? Write it down on paper.
So this is the thing. Yeah. This is where
all the time, every time they say this, every time they say this, always infrastructure.
So this is my problem.
It's called Bogos.
So I get it. So if I am
the same Lagos Calabar that they say is a PPP project.
Yeah. So we're trying to borrow
money. It's
supposed
to be PPP. Yeah. So this is the thing, right? I remember, and I said it many shows ago, go big or go home. But and this is not everybody else below him, I'm talking about the president himself, needs to fully explain to us what this plan is. And to be honest, no.
Guys,
I mean, like, what other plan are you looking for?
We don't need a bigger government. The US government tried this coming out of the late 70s. Going into the 70s. And it's failed woefully. And I would argue that was what led the US to where it is right now, its debt profile right now. Was that mistake in the early 70s. Thinking that you could buy your way out of, economic depression,
by spending,
or high inflation by spending. You can't outspend inflation.
No, but there's a difference. And
you can't outspend inflation.
You can't.
No, you can't outspend inflation, but you can outspend underdevelopment. The US at that point had the structural capabilities to grow. The US had the platform to grow. Nigeria does not.
How is China doing it? How is China doing it?
We know how China.
I'll come back to that. We're in the US now. You have world-grade infrastructure, airports, water system, rail system. Where? Which state in the US?
No, nowhere. But
Well, you find that in China.
absolutely. And China spent
So-
its way there.
So that's what I'm saying. So how's China doing it?
Allocation. I said they're going to spend money on something. It gets spent on that thing.
If they don't spend, someone gets.
You
what
see,
happens?
so as long as you
Someone gets
spend, so the clarity,
You see the hangman. You see the
so the
hangman.
clarity.
So are you saying that wasn't happening in the US? They weren't spending. Right? Are they as
No.
corrupt as-
What he's saying
The
is
US
that
is
you
the
said you
most
were going to
corrupt
spend
country
3
in the
naira for
world.
this.
I hope they're
you
not
spend
watching,
3
yeah.
naira. That I've also.
Trump is going through social media, by the way.
You said you were going to spend 3 naira on this. You spent 3
My
naira on
next
this.
visa application.
My issue, Esili, is this. I'm really desperate for us to fix the underdevelopment issue in Nigeria. I'm really desperate. And I have come to see, and I still will go back to the fact that I do not believe it is something you can completely put in the hands of the private sector without allowing them toll the infrastructure they are creating. Because that's the only time I believe
You're
that
told anyways.
No,
so what I mean by you're told
now I'm
anyways
talking
is
about
that
direct tolling.
yes, but I'm saying that you get told anyways by way of inflation and all the kinds of rubbish we have to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So what I'm saying is that I
agree.
believe that I'm
So
saying
how
this,
do we pay for this debt though?
So how much do you pay right now?
How do we pay
How much do you
back
pay
this
per
debt?
kilowatt hour? How much do you pay per kilowatt hour for power now?
This is a big
I
deal.
have
That's
a
400.
blended thing,
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Boy,
a
that's
bit
400.
expensive. No.
So anyway, so I imagine you're one of those that are paying like 300, almost 300 naira per kilowatt hour. Okay, because that's kind of where market rate is. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're not paying that much, Tinji, you wouldn't have 24 hours electricity. There's just no way.
Yeah, we agree.
That's not to say that it's good, okay? But at least it allows you to be
Some level of
productive.
sanity,
It allows you to be
yeah,
productive.
and you can plan
You
properly.
understand?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's where Nigeria needs to be, because then I think that in many ways, okay, we've kind of outpriced ourselves as far as productivity goes because of the cost of electricity and so many other
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So there needs to be a deliberate effort by the government to try and bring down those costs, okay? We can discuss how in a subsequent interview to bring down those costs so that Nigeria can be very productive again. This is a big problem that so many countries have to deal with every day. Not just us. The Kenyans are dealing with it. The Ugandans are dealing with it. The Ghanaians are dealing with it. But I don't think we're not even thinking about it.
I want to
we
believe
not?
this is what they
Are
are.
we?
I want to believe this is what they are
we
doing.
not?
You want to believe?
So again, Esili, I will not pretend, and I've said it to them, right? I'm trying to be naively optimistic that these guys
Wouldn't you rather
That is
bet
nice.
on the
That's
private
nice,
sector?
Bye.
Wouldn't you rather bet on the private sector than the government?
Nigeria's private sector? No.
What do you mean? No, I don't understand.
That's the part I don't
I am
understand.
in the
So
private
Tunji
sector
believes that the government
yeah.
is better equipped and skilled.
I'm not saying I'm not saying
to
they are better.
industrialize
Regardless-
Nigeria
I'm not saying they are
than the
better
private
skilled.
sector. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying they are better skilled. I am saying that Nigeria's private sector, a large portion of Nigeria's private sector became what it is due to enablement from what the government in Nigeria usually is. Do the math if you understand what I'm saying.
I don't too.
That so efficiently, a lot of what our private sector in Nigeria is would have never been in a very efficient system.
I'm very proud of
So I've
MMA
been-
too.
I've been
Because I
involved
feel
in
like-
privatization.
Because I feel like every time I go
let's
into
not use the
MMA
exception.
1, I'm like, what is this now? Like, if you guys don't want us to travel, just shut it down. That's what I'm saying.
looks like a motor park.
Just shut it down. MMA 2 is private. It runs, you pay a bit extra, but it's working. Okay? And there's so many examples of that we can discuss
Have you been
here.
to- Have you been to a government-owned hotel before?
It doesn't also
Have you
take
been to government-owned
big
hotel,
planes.
Tunji?
No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong what I'm
I
saying.
think,
get yourself
we've
wrong.
already
Don't get
established
me
this
wrong.
already.
I am saying that.
See, government. So with respect to your concern around private sector,
Yeah.
the government job is they can regulate.
They don't know. From my perspective. I do not believe that our government as a whole understands regulation.
You're arguing for a bigger government. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not.
But how can you not be a bigger government if you're not borrowing and expanding?
So
Exactly.
I'm speaking the facts about Nigeria, what I understand Nigeria to be. Nigeria's government doesn't understand regulation. Nigeria's government understands rent taking. If you want them to, if you create measurements of how they can tax better, Nigeria's government will be very good at it.
Yeah.
However, in terms of regulation, in terms of forward thinking about industries and creating,
They're not good at that.
They're not. They don't
So
just.
which is our point.
Yeah.
So why then give government all that money to manage? Why don't you give the private sector?
So this money is not coming to regulate. This money is coming to build.
They're not going to build well. That's the point.
Now,
They're profligates.
On the reverse, Nigeria's private sector knows how to do deals. Nigeria's private sector has never really been visionary.
I disagree.
Anyway, guys, we can't go on. If we go on, we're not going to end. My last question is, how do we pay for the debt? And I know that Tunji hasn't explained to me yet.
We're getting there.
How do we pay for the debt? How do we pay for
We'll
it?
figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll
How do we
figure
pay
it
for
out.
We're getting there.
It's a good question.
Yeah, no,
How
it
do we
is a
pay
good
for it?
question, though. It is a good question.
Taxes?
No.
And
How?
also,
What
I mean,
else?
my worry about
I'm not sure we would agree. We would like this. What I'm about
Because
to say.
you're borrowing in dollars, don't it? Was
yeah, so that's another worry.
So how do you pay for the debt?
That's another one of
So
my worries. Borrowing in dollars means it's going to be more expensive than it
the one
is
PPP in
right now.
Nigeria that I think could have worked, that looked like it was on the way to working, was the
Lekki
Expressway. And it had a high level of efficiency in terms of your car breaks down the road, a car tows you for free to where you're going to. It's because it was towed. It had a lot of revenue coming in. We need to be comfortable with such kind of infrastructure.
But we can do it.
Again, how will you pay now? You know, when Tunji doesn't want to
I'm saying toll. There was
toll. Is that what paid for $22 billion?
No, you can now. There was a time in
Are you
Nigeria
going to toll all the roads that they build?
there was a time in
You
Nigeria
can't
that
toll all the
every
roads that
expressway.
government builds. It's
There
not
was a
possible.
time in Nigeria that
and it's not only roads they're going to build. They're going to build hospitals. They're going to build
you are
schools.
leaving Lagos to Ibadan. There's a toll gate. When you are getting to Ibadan, there's a toll gate. I mind you.
That's intercity roads.
Just keep refinancing. That's just what we do.
That's intercity roads.
So I'm saying that it has been done in Nigeria before.
So
you need a mix of both.
Wait, no. So we're saying that if you get a $22 billion loan, we will pay back this loan by tolling.
We'll just refinance when it comes with mature.
We refinance.
No, I think.
All right, guys. Let's go to the last topic.
I think toll
GDP. GDP numbers. We're expecting GDP numbers out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Q1. We've seen at least to a large extent Q2 even. We've experienced Q2 even though we're not done yet, but we've experienced the whole of Q1. Just wanted your take on your expectations for Q1 GDP. Do you think we sustain the same 4% plus we did towards the end of last year? Or are you expecting
Did you do
something
sub 3 years?
No.
Was it?
Sorry, sub 4. Sorry.
Q4?
Sub 4, about
Sub 4, just
3.45 or so, yeah.
Yeah, 2.4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
2.4, yeah.
So what do you guys expect?
I don't see why not. If you're asking me, based on what I see on the street, activity levels have increased significantly because
They didn't get to 4?
because Nigerians are more optimistic about the way the economy is trending, the impact of the reforms. So that's boosting, and I can see that even in my own business, and when I speak to peers, it's pretty consistent. So and we see that across the board. I think that the oil and gas companies have taken, if you want to say, the first sort of hit, in that everyone's getting actively to boosting our production. Rigs are up from, at the beginning of last year, maybe around just sub 20. Now we're talking about 35, and NURPC talking about 52. And then just look at all the other supporting sectors around the oil and gas industry, services. I think that we're seeing that all across the board. So the first quarter numbers didn't surprise me, and I expect to see a repeat as well.
So fourth quarter number was actually 3.84%.
Yeah.
So you don't think we can beat that Q1?
No, I think 3.7, between 3.7 and 3.8. I don't think we get to 4.
You shared one
I said I put my forecast here 3.7 versus actual 3.8. Yeah. So I think 3.7 to 3.8.
Well, no, was that your
That
forecast?
was my forecast. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's.
Yeah, I mean. See, I mentioned this
That's
two shows.
Tunji kind of forecast.
No, that's not me. He's predicting that it'll drop, right?
Yeah, margin.
Q1 last year was 2.98.
No,
No, from Q1 to Q2.
Yeah, I'm 3.7. So I think that, I mean, the sectors that are doing good are doing good. But my worry is always going to be the manufacturing and the agricultural.
What has happened to them? What has happened to them?
Nothing. So it's just going to be the
So
same.
why should it drop?
So not drop, but just the margin. The margin of growth. The growth is going to be very tiny.
Yeah.
I think what Arnold is trying to say is dig deeper on the Q1.
Maybe we didn't get everything.
But I know the Q1 numbers, are they going to be rebased?
Sorry, dig deeper on the Q4.
So we're looking at rebased. We're looking at a rebased Q1.
So here's what I do.
Hot take.
No, it's not hot take.
Oh.
So you for a while I've been around. I've been speaking about statistics and stuff. But one of the things I've seen for me in my own experience, I don't know about any other person, is that I find something consistent. And Esili said it, he said in his business, his peers, there's this thing that our ancestors used to do where they'll put their hand on their tongue and, taste the air or something like that. To know all those things, right?
Yeah.
One way I've found that is consistent with GDP numbers is how the feeling on the street.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
Arnold.
I don't know. Let me tell you why I don't
I'm
know.
saying is consistent. I've felt it consistent for over a decade.
I don't know, because GDP numbers, I'm not.
So you're expecting more than
Arnold, over a decade. Once the streets will tell you. And when I say
what's
the
the street
streets
saying now?
The streets are slightly, they're not happy, but they're not as pessimistic as this
So
same
are we
time.
going to do better than Q4?
So I think we should inch slightly higher or just stays flat.
So I mean, I stated 3.9-ish.
Yeah.
We haven't done 4% in
No, we don't
years.
do 4%.
No, I don't think 4% yet. I don't think 4%.
I stated
But
my
I know
views
we
a while back where I said GDP numbers. I'm realizing our GDP numbers is not really hitting the man on the streets in terms of job growth.
No, it does.
Because the sectors that are booming are sectors that most people don't have access to. Right?
No, it does. No, I know it does.
Your oil, which is great, but manufacturing, agriculture.
So GDP,
that's a massive portion of our economy.
So
you don't.
A large portion of our GDP
man on the street is what street you're talking about.
A large portion of our GDP is non-oil.
Yeah, but non-oil is what?
Agriculture,
services,
telco.
Yeah, a lot portion of our GDP, not GDP growth. So I'm saying that
services.
agriculture, manufacturing,
services basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But services that don't provide jobs.
So service. Well, let's go back.
Jobs.
Services are also part of the things the man on the street enjoys.
Import export. That's moving.
So when the man of this so let me tell you,
trade.
All those things, and it's not
Services
difficult to
falls under
see.
But I think a large portion of our
falls into
GDP is
services.
agriculture and manufacturing. There's a large portion, and if that's a
Not
large
as large
portion of
as
our
services.
GDP,
Not as large as services.
but I'm
Services are
saying,
the
okay,
biggest.
so but for me is when I look at how that impacts on people's lives, agriculture, manufacturing impacts more on people's lives than services.
No,
Wouldn't you agree?
Nigeria is a
I
largely
would say-
service.
Agriculture, food.
Nigeria is a largely
It
service-driven
does, but
economy.
services
Yeah.
basically
Services.
drive
Services
economic growth
is
in
the
Nigeria.
major portion
It drives
of
economic growth, but I'm talking about job creation. I'm talking about things that actually will affect wage growth. Job
So
creation.
let me
wage
tell you what
growth.
I
Put money in your pocket.
Let me give you
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
informal. Let me give you
But do you
informal.
understand what-
Let me give you
I get
informal
it, I get it,
services.
I get it.
Informal services that everybody gets to enjoy regularly. You enter, you take bus from one place to another. You go and barb your hair, which you must do. You go to the restaurant to go and eat food. All these things I'm talking about are services.
Cleaning services.
Cleaning
Yeah.
services.
Yeah. Those are
So
the-
the
those are-
service-
those are-
Nigeria is
service-
predominantly service.
It's
Service
predominantly
is like a 50,
and
50,
if
almost.
you see if you see those guys, and I don't want to
A
say
lot of
they
the
are
fruits you see,
Yeah.
they're not guys who are actively out there farming. They're just
So I'm not saying that the streets are happy. I'm just saying that they're not as angry as they were a while back.
Yeah.
And it tells you that the economy isn't as difficult as
It's
it
not
was
as,
then.
well, it's not. It's difficult. It's just that
Exactly. It's not as
they're
difficult.
more hopeful.
Positive
They're-
vibes,
they're-
positive
Exactly.
vibes. We move straight
Exactly.
into buy, sell, or hold. I actually think that GDP numbers will hit 4%. I mean, that's me. I might be wrong, but I think we're coming from a low base in 2024.
Yeah.
And with Tunji and the numbers that they are racking up for
rebasing,
tweaking. Also,
we will get to 5%. 4
with the tweaking that's coming up.
4.89.
I'm a little optimistic. So buy, sell, or hold. I want to restrict buy, sell, or hold some of the things that we've been talking about today. And I'm going to start with Tunji's favorite, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing the rally for a bit, and we're getting towards summer period. Buy, sell, or hold. Bitcoin will crash below 100K by the end of August.
That is very possible. Very possible.
Just buy, sell, or hold. That's it.
When you say crash, it is at 107 as I right now. It can easily do that by tomorrow.
It's at 107 already.
It can do that tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah. So back to 70K levels.
No, so back here's the thing. No. And I was going to say this when we're talking about it. Bitcoin is, in my opinion, do not take my opinion as what do they call it? Financial advice. But I do believe that Bitcoin is on a rally to 150 and it will stay there. It will not, I don't think it will cross there, but it is on a rally towards that.
So you're selling, Arnold?
Well, am I selling or holding Bitcoin?
Are you buying Bitcoin? We hit 70K by August.
To 70K by August. You were the one that said there's a correction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think we see another
correction. 70K.
It's coming. We saw that US Treasuries and 20-year, 30-year crossed 5% for the first time in a while. So I think that's it's telling of what is coming to the market just slowly. Yeah, so I think so.
Yeah. I think given the political support, I don't see how it falls below 80, 90.
Yeah. But also don't forget that Trump Part 2 comes in July when Europe and
so you're selling.
US can't.
I think it will fall.
It falls.
I'm buying.
It falls.
I'm buying. All right. Next buy, sell, or hold is on interest rate. I mean, I think Esili just blew us.
Yeah, I mean, he's the first person I've seen that in a long while that is hawkish about Nigeria's economy.
And so my buy, sell, or hold question now is on rates itself.
Okay.
Are we likely going to see another hawkish CBN when they meet? Next, I don't know, when is the next MPC? In a couple of months from now.
Yeah.
So buy, sell, or hold, MPC continues with hawkish monetary policy stance.
Have they been hawkish? No.
No, they've been definitely across the board.
They've been hawkish now.
Across the board. Just read the minutes.
Yeah, with the CR
and for good reason.
Things,
and for good reason.
They just haven't increased rates, but they've been hawkish. Asymmetric corridor and all that.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. I still believe that the intention is to cut rates, but they do not have enough data to do it yet. That's my feeling. So I'm a sell. I don't
think they'll cut rates. Sell means you don't believe they'll be hawkish.
The reason why I think they will, the reason why I don't think they will sell, they'll cut, they will increase rates is for an entirely different reason. But I don't think they will. I think they will cut rates eventually.
I think they are under pressure to cut rates.
Politically, yes.
Yeah, under pressure to cut rates. So I think that pressure.
So we could say that. I didn't know.
I think that pressure wins.
I'll be politically correct.
Second half of the year, the cut rates.
The cut rates.
Yeah.
Silly.
Definitely hawkish, as you know. I think that at the very least, keep rates at a hold. It's an MPC that I think is very conscious of where inflation really is, and also the constraint that they have in terms of, the tools to do their work, as well as a very expansionary fiscal policy.
All right, next buy, sell, or hold is on the exchange rate. I mean, we've been seeing pressure, rate disparity. Buy, sell, or hold, Naira weakening to 1.7 by June.
No, June is next week.
Sell. No way. How about
June? June's next week.
We're on 1.620 already. Parallel
June
market,
is,
that is. Parallel
is
market is what I mean.
So we say 30 days?
30 days is
Yeah.
June. June ending is what I mean.
30
Like June
days.
ending. I
We
don't
give
mean
it-
June 1. Yeah, June. June ending.
30
Anytime
days.
in June.
30 days. Yeah, why not?
how much is it now?
1620.
620 or something.
Nah.
Why not?
Nah.
I mean, I'm bearish Naira, man.
Nah.
Like I said, I love
Still
the
downside
assets.
risk, significant downside risk for
Yeah.
that because
Plausible.
30
yeah,
days.
because you
Yeah.
still have this issue with oil price. Oil price is still
Exactly.
sub
Sub-
65.
Yeah.
And we don't have clarity on the trade wars yet or the US
Yeah.
policy on trade because,
Yeah.
again, as you might have heard, those discussions can take up to a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the Russia-Ukraine talks sort of fell apart last night or a couple of nights ago.
With Trump warning and all that.
Yeah,
saying
Trump warning. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
How does that affect anything though? It's Trump, it's Ukraine and Russia. It doesn't.
No, well, I think it's
Probably
just, it
affects
just adds to
It just adds
It just
uncertainty.
adds, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's not.
Your
it's not
political risk.
significant.
Yeah.
To oil?
To oil? No, it's not. How now?
I mean, and then with
Ukraine, Russia.
Saudi and then OPEC Plus also pumping, increasing, ramping up production as well. So those are downside risks.
No, but of course, obviously, addressing that war could obviously lead to Russia pumping more.
Oh, I agree.
yeah.
I agree. with
Yeah,
that.
so
I
like
agree.
it's-
No. But it's
I don't
not.
understand.
It's not a. I mean, there.
It is.
One of the reasons why
OPEC
one of
plus.
the reasons why U.S. Saudi Arabia the alliance is critical is that the U.S. knows that anytime there's a shock in the market, it can always bring Saudi Arabia as a major pump into the market to be able to stabilize oil prices. So as long as the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are in alliance, which we've just seen Trump
Yeah, but
go
you still
to
can't discount
the
Russia.
Middle East, I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying it's not really as big as it's.
All right. Last buy, sell, or hold.
That was great, wasn't it?
Nigeria's $22 billion loan, proposed loan. Buy, sell, or hold. The federal government will be successful at raising that money over the next 2 years.
That's yes, they will
So
succeed.
you're gonna get buyers.
And they will but I need to say this because I know how clips can get
Do
taken.
you think Nigeria defaults?
Wait, now let me finish. I know how
Nigeria
clips.
defaults.
People
can.
can take video
Right.
clips
Okay.
and then play it for you.
You're already
Yes.
messaging.
No. So I'm being naively optimistic.
that they will secure this
I'm
loan.
saying it. No, it's
I know
not.
they have 13 trillion fiscal
I
deficits
know
anyway,
that
so they need to
I know we will
finance
get
that.
the loan.
Okay.
However, the utilization of the money is what I'm saying with a caveat. Before you say Tunji was supporting it that time, I'm saying that I want to believe that it will be utilized appropriately.
That's not the question we asked.
No, as I
Buy,
guess
sell,
I
or hold.
will
Will they
be
raise?
raised.
Yeah,
I think
would
they
it be
can
successful?
raise.
They'll
Yeah.
raise,
I mean,
they'll raise.
if it gets passed, they can raise. Or we can raise.
I think there's capacity there. In the last 18 months, I think African countries have done something around
$22 billion
16.
It's Nigeria. Oh.
$22 billion.
They've done
We can raise
$16
that.
billion.
Of course.
African countries.
Yes, in the last
That's collection
18
of
months.
countries.
Yes,
$122 billion in 2 years.
that's 2
We
years
can do
again.
it.
Remember that.
We can do it.
So
That's over 40
We
trillion.
can do it.
We can do it.
It's possible.
It's Nigeria.
We have
Given-
the
I
BFIs,
think-
you have the
I think that-
capital markets.
I think that if the environment remains accommodative, so take for example where oil prices begin to rally, and there's a track record of oil production itself also improving. And I mean, you saw the FT article, I think it was yesterday, right? Yeah, you continue to see stuff like that. It definitely, again, you have to remember that the last bond we tried to raise was 3 times subscribed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 times.
Even the Sukuk
7 times.
The
subscribed.
Sukuk-
And
bond.
that's actually been the case for a lot of the African peers as well. They've been oversubscribed
Yeah,
because
we'll
we just
be
had
okay.
this dread of.
I kind of feel like next 5-10 years we're gonna be talking about Africa's
Default.
debt renaissance. Like Africa needs to like be free of all.
No, you
these
don't. You don't need to
burdensome
get that
debt.
long. It's
Yeah,
happening already. So I
exactly.
told you about the movement of money, inflow of money into emerging markets. It's
Yeah.
only just halted with the U.S. trade policies. Otherwise, that was the trend. Monies was leaving developed markets into emerging markets. They've slowed down or reversed a little, but I expect that trend to continue into the short to medium term.
All right, guys. It's been a very busy drinks and bikes session today. By the way, we should be announcing our winner for the 100K giveaway last week. I don't know whether Tunji and Arnold have come up with the winners yet. So I'm waiting for them to come up with the winners, and then just send your account number, and then we'll transfer using the same. Are we going to use the same app that somebody used the last time?
We have to.
Yeah, that app is
amazing. I
thought that was so cool. So
it was cool.
yeah, so
And
I don't
also-
know. I guess the guys at the back end are probably going to tell us who the winner is.
And also, I put in the comment section that
I don't know anybody who called you Otumba there though.
quite a few actually.
Oh, really?
So I just want to let you guys know that you have won a copy of Vantage.
So there were more unbelievers than believers in your.
I thank you for calling me Otumba Arnold. You know, keep it coming. There might be a few more gifts in my back pockets.
Arnold was doing the intellectual version of stomach infrastructure.
Yeah.
In the
Imagine,
comment section. He was
He
giving
actually
that
went there.
It was like,
So,
and
what's
hey,
in his book?
I
it was
said,
like-
didn't give it away.
Illuminate
Just
book.
call me
It was like,
Otumba.
hey,
then
man,
you
call
get
me
it.
Otumba again.
Keep it coming.
All right, guys. Another amazing session of Drinks and Mics. It was great to have Esili on the show today. Hope we can have him again. Really love his insights.
I like it because
And for the first time, I saw someone keep Tunji a little bit on. You know,
Yeah,
Tunji was a
on his
little rattled
toes.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
because typically Tunji just comes and bullies everyone.
He
But
does. He actually
Tunji
does.
was
He
on
actually
his
does.
toes today.
Yes.
So
Tunji, you made
obviously,
it work.
No,
obviously we're gonna get Esili back here.
I think the thing is,
I was gonna sit next to Tunji next.
Yeah.
Because then Tunji would
I was surprised. I was surprised about a lot of thoughts. So in the conversation,
He had a lot
I
of
was
hot takes.
thinking,
Hot
I was
takes.
thinking about. So it's like my thoughts and then his thought. I'm like,
Yeah,
So I'm
you
like,
sit down for a second.
I'm thinking, like, let me think this through before.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Until we do this again next week, do have a profitable week ahead. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.